So there's this really provocative theory making the rounds online, and it connects the US economy, a potential war, and the Trump presidency in a way you probably haven't heard before. In this explainer, we're going to break down the key claims from that source material and really dig into what this war economy theory is all about. Whenever a major conflict kicks off, the first thing we all think about is the economy, right? Gas prices start creeping up, the market gets shaky. It seems pretty straightforward that it's a bad thing. But the source material we're looking at today says that what you're seeing on the surface, well, that's just the tip of the iceberg. So on one side, you have what most of us would think. War costs a ton of money, and our wallets are going to feel it. But on the other side is the core argument from this source, that all this immediate pain, it's not only short-term, but it's actually a distraction, a smokescreen, they call it, for a much, much bigger change that's happening on purpose, right behind the curtain. And that brings us to the first huge layer of this whole theory. The argument here is that what we're all living through isn't some random accident. Nope, it's a deliberate, calculated pivot away from the economic model that's been running the show for the last, 50 years or so. The way the source material frames it, this is a full-on battle between two completely different economic philosophies. On one team, you've got what they call the financialized economy. Think Wall Street, speculation, and bubbles. They literally describe it as a giant parasite. But on the other team is the physical economy they claim Trump is building, one based on real tangible stuff like manufacturing, energy, steel, and becoming totally self-sufficient as a nation. So how exactly would you build this new physical economy? Well, the source points to a few key strategies. Things like using tariffs to protect our industries, locking down supplies of critical minerals, and making massive investments to bring manufacturing back home. They even give a specific example, an alleged $5 billion deal to bring Philadelphia's shipyards roaring back to life. Okay, so if the war is just a smokescreen, what in the world is it hiding? According to this theory, the real emergency is what they call a globalist Ponzi scheme that's about to completely fall apart. A global financial system that they claim is built on fraud and is teetering right on the edge of failure. And the scale of this supposed crisis is just mind-boggling. The source claims there's a minimum of $22 trillion in what they call bad paper, basically worthless loans and junk assets holding up the entire global system. But hold on, they claim even that might be the low-end estimate. The speakers in the source video suggest the real number could be as high as $42 trillion. If something that massive unraveled, they argue, it would make the 2008 crash look like a tiny little hiccup and could absolutely wipe out major global banks. So it's really important we get what they mean by Ponzi scheme. They're describing a system where massive loans are made against collateral that's either never actually checked or is just wildly overvalued. Then, to cover up all these bad debts, more and more money just gets printed out of thin air. That creates the inflation we all feel while hiding the fact that the system itself is completely broken. And this is where we circle right back to that whole smokescreen idea. The theory basically says that these huge, devastating wars aren't just random, tragic events. They're actually used on purpose as a cover story to hide these exact kinds of catastrophic financial collapses. The source actually lays out what they call the globalist playbook. The steps are shockingly simple. First, you create a super fragile financial system with reckless loans. Second, right when it's about to collapse, you start a war. Third, you blame the war for the economic chaos, not the people who created the mess. And fourth, you use all that chaos to grab more power and more wealth. They even point to World War I and II as past examples of this playbook in action. This quote from the source really captures how they believe the blame game is going to be played. The argument is that no matter what happens, any negative event is going to be pinned directly on Trump by the media, turning a super complex situation into a simple whodunit. Okay, so if that's the giant problem, what's the supposed solution? Well, this takes us to the final, and let's be honest, the most speculative part of the theory, the alleged multi-part endgame that's supposedly designed to tear down this old system and build a brand new one. The source then predicts a very specific sequence of events. They claim it all kicks off with big patriotic celebrations in July, builds steam with a special midterm convention in September to show off economic victories, and all leads up to a massive, decisive win in the November midterms. And this whole endgame, they say, stands on three main pillars. Pillar 1, a massive wave of accountability for corrupt officials. Pillar 2, a complete reset of the financial system, bringing in a new currency that they think could be backed by gold. And Pillar 3, using executive orders and public pressure to lock down election integrity.
Now, this is where the theory goes into what you might call its most radical territory, with something the source calls the black hole of accountability. The speculation here is that if a huge number of officials were actually removed from power, a special convention might have to be called to create an entirely new citizens' government. This is, of course, deep, deep into the realm of pure conjecture.
And that brings us right to the central question posed by everything we've just gone through. Is this a secret roadmap for a new American economy where all the chaos we see is just a cover for some grand plan? Or is it a massive, elaborate conspiracy theory, weaving unrelated events into a story that's compelling, but maybe not real? We've broken down all the claims for you. Now the conclusion, well, that's up to you. Thanks for joining us.